Good morning, everyone. We're live. The internet this morning seems to be slow. I think it's cold too. I don't know. Bless you, Hartwell.
Thank you. Excuse
Yeah.
me.
So this morning, good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So this morning, the topic that you chose to talk about was circuitry.
Yeah.
So for those people that are not familiar with human design, can you go into and explain what the different circuits are in human design?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you look at a body graph, it's very obvious upon first glance that there's these centers. And these are energy centers in our being, and they're connected through channels. It looks like some sort of energy diagram, and that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what we are. The
Mm-hmm.
life force through the life force flows through these channels
Mm-hmm.
and centers,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and there are certain groups of circuits which share themes with each other in the body graph. So the main circuits are, the integration channel is not technically a circuit, but it's a um, the integration channel, and that's the one between. If you look at the throat, that goes to the G, that shares the channel, that goes down to the sacral, and that goes over to the left with, left bottom, which is the spleen. That's the integration channel. And then there's three major circuit groups besides that. There's the collective circuit group, the individual circuit group, and the tribal circuit group.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the significances of the circuit? Like, what does it mean? How do you understand what a circuit is? Like, you're saying that it's the life force that, like, it's like a door that lets the life force flow through us. But what makes them different from each other?
Um, I'm not, yeah,
Like,
it's just the way it is, Kris. That's my answer at this moment. It's like, it's just
Uh-huh.
the way it is. That's the way we're designed. And
Right.
so if we start looking at what they are, let me identify them first, and maybe then
Mhm.
I can say more about them. And I
Okay.
know this picture is not so big, but
Hmm.
hopefully, if you've been following along with this series now, you have a little bit of familiarity with some of the lingo, some of the language of human design.
Hmm.
Now, if, for instance, you are looking at the central, you'll see that there's often three groups of channels. There's three from the head to the ajna, and three from the ajna to the throat. And then there's three that frame down the right side to the emotional center, and there's three between the solar plexus and the root, etc. There's three down the middle. And the center channel of all those is the individual circuitry. So right now I'm just identifying what they are.
Hmm.
Um, and if you look to the outside ones, like the ones that frame the body, the outside of the three, on the outside of the three, you've got the middle individual in the middle, and on the outside you have the collective circuitry. So the entire body graph is framed by the collective circuitry. And then in the center, if you look at the ego, which is the little triangular one to the right of the diamond shaped one, then if you look at the kind of the circular pattern that runs from the ego to the spleen, and then down at the top channel between the spleen and the root, and then over between the top channel between the root and the solar plexus, and back to the ego. That is the tribal circuitry. So it's kind of at the core of our being, and each of these has their different themes.
Hmm. So, can you go more in depth into that, like what the themes are for each one? And
Absolutely. So if I just say another mention about the integration channels, which are there running from the G to the throat, the G to the solar plexus, or sorry, G to throat, G to spleen, and G to sacral. That integration channel is all about ensuring the survival of the physical organism, individual by individual. It drives us, and it knows how to survive, and it knows how to move ahead.
Mm-hmm.
If we look now at the individual circuitry, and each of these circuit groups has a couple of subcircuits. Not that we need to remember that at this point. This is a lot of complexity. And remember, these little things are just teasers. But the individual circuitry is made up of two subgroups, the knowing circuit and the centering circuit. And collectively, what they do is empower individuals to be different from the tribe. These are the tribes that have a direct knowingness, that have a sense of there's a mutational sense about them. There's a sense in which they are designed to be different. They need to mutate things. They need to bring the newness into the world. They drive evolution. They drive the evolution of our species, and we could not survive without them and without that energy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So these circuits, right? Tell us more about the one that you were speaking about before, the integration channel. Can you tell us more about that one?
Sure. It keeps us on track to survive as a species. And it is all about, the keynote there is self-empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that are not so concerned, about others.
Okay.
They are empowered to act and live their lives as individuals within the collective. So they keep everything grounded.
Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
The metaphor that's popping into my mind, Kris, is the idea that together all of humanity makes up one organism.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the people that are carrying strong definition in the integration channel
Mm-hmm.
are the one that are grounding our survival collectively as a species, even though on an individual level they may look very self-sufficient and very unconcerned, less concerned about other people around them.
Right. So is that, I can't remember when we were speaking before, where you said there's some types of people that don't need others, like they're just fine on their own. Is that what you were talking about? Was this integration channel, or was it a different part of the design? I'm trying to remember.
Well, there are some things that can contribute to similar experiences. We were talking about definition at that point.
Oh,
People
right.
who have no break in the flow of energy in their designs.
Right.
So they're a unit. They have a unitary energy flow. There's
Mm-hmm.
not, different aspects of them that are accessed in different ways.
Oh, okay. So can you tell us what the collective circuit group is all about?
The collective circuit group is here to share their ideas, their opinions, their answers. They are driven by a sense of social obligation.
Mm-hmm.
They're communal,
Mm-hmm.
they're personal.
Mm-hmm.
So those outward channels, the ones that are on the borderline of the body graph, the outer border, those are the collective channels. And there's two subgroups there.
Mm-hmm.
One is called the logical circuit group,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is called the abstract or experiential sensing circuit.
Mm-hmm.
So the logical circuit group is kind of it has ideas about the future, about where we're going, and as those ideas arise in the lives of those people, they move through life based upon experiment. Let's experiment, find out what works, let's keep going. And so they are driven to share those insights, but it's impersonal. It's kind of like they're not seeking recognition. They're not. It's an impersonal force within them to be sharing the things that they learn.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say that the logic circuit is on the left side of the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it runs through the spleen and down to the root, all the way from the head down to the throat, down to the root.
Mm-hmm.
But on the right side, or left side rather. And so these people are cooler, as we often experience logical people being. They're cooler.
Oh, what makes
Uh,
them cooler?
well, the spleen is said to, well, I mean, they're not warm because they're not on the right side of the chart, which is the sensing circuit, which is based on experience, which goes through the solar plexus, which is
Yeah.
about the ups and downs of life, and it's more oriented towards the past
Yeah, I
and
was thinking like cool man, cool, not cool
oh,
temperature.
cool temperature,
I was like,
cool, logical,
I want to be cool.
experimental versus experiential. So
Right.
the sensing circuit is experiential.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're the ones that go through all the dramas, the emotional dramas, and the emotional journey of life is the subset of the collective circuitry, and they come up with their insights arise out of the processing of their experience.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So, what about the tribal circuit? Like, what can you tell us about that and how does that work?
The tribal circuitry is interesting. It's by nature it's communal and hierarchical. The collective is not hierarchical per se,
Mm-hmm.
but the tribal is all about bonds and agreements and bargains, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about loyalty to the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are very, very the parts of us that are very tribal and the if we look out at the world, the people who are very much about tribal purity and
Mm-hmm.
loyalty to the tribe and suspicion of outsiders, this is all tribal circuitry.
Ah, okay.
But it's got
Interesting.
there's two parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
There is there's the ego circuit,
Mm-hmm.
because the tribe is driven by will.
Ah,
It's driven by will, and so the will center there, just down and to the right of the diamond shaped one, that is the center of it, and the themes there are bonds made and broken and um, hierarchical sort of loyalty to the tribe, and if you're loyal, as long as you're loyal, you're safe. As long as you're part of that group, you're safe. And it's got the material way is founded in that.
mm-hmm.
So there's the part of us that it looks to God and spirit, and that's the right side. That's the right side through the root, through the solar plexus up to the ego. That's the part that cares, that reaches for God, reaches for spirit, and it has a lot to do with the religious aspect of a tribe, those traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And on the left side, from the ego down to the spleen, down to the root, these, this is the part of us that is, it's about having, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about accumulating, and it's about material resources and making money, and about being an entrepreneur.
So that's funny because that just shows the duality of things between the material world and the spirit world, right? Like you've just basically said that the right is the spirit and the left is the material world, right? Like
Yes,
that's
the
what we're
duality.
here.
You
Yeah.
could, I mean, that's one way to look at it, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But remember, they're part of one uninterrupted circuit, so you can't have one without the other. So that's
Yeah,
an
but
interesting thing to reflect on as well.
yeah, but it doesn't that kind of explain the struggle that we have between the two? Like, and some people would probably have it more if they're defined or undefined in that. or have that circuit completed or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they would have the experience, this you could on a simplistic level say that this is the root of the conservative versus liberal sort of
Mm-hmm.
polarity in the world, or um, capitalism versus socialism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're inextricably related. You can't have one without the other. They're both equally part of us.
Well, that's life, right? We can't have good without bad and bad without good. I mean, the duality is there everywhere, but I just find it interesting that you can actually see it in the human design chart of human beings, that that innately is something that takes place whether we're aware of it or not, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
That we are an expression, all of
Mhm.
us, of our design. And that's
Mhm.
why I love design, because then it encourages me, if not forces me,
Mhm.
to affirm the
Mhm.
value
Right.
of all these aspects of human life, and not
Mhm.
just the ones that I am attuned to and I'm designed to carry.
Mhm.
So I love that. It Studying human design is an activity that creates a sense of inclusiveness. It's like I can't dismiss those people.
Well, like compassion, I would think that it creates compassion for others because I'm looking at the chart and I'm going, well, this is how you're designed to be. This is who you are. How can I judge that when you're designed to do exactly that? Right? There's
Right.
a purpose, there's a reason for that, right?
Instead, let's actually celebrate that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. I like to end on that insight because it sounds so profound and hopeful for humanity. So, with that, next week, do you want to tell everybody what we're going to be diving into?
Next week we'll focus a little bit. It's kind of a riff on, or it sequentially makes sense, to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the format channels,
Mm-hmm.
which are very, very important, and they are the ones that run from the root directly to the sacral in
Mm-hmm.
the middle.
Okay.
And they, in a sense, well, we'll wait to talk about that till
Yeah,
then.
yeah. It was just supposed to be a little snippet so they knew what we were going into. But
Yeah,
thank,
yeah.
thank you all for joining us today. And we hope you're enjoying these little snippets into human design. It is a huge topic. And Hartwell is free to do readings and counselings on it to help you integrate the information because it is a lot of information. So we're diving into that and offering it as people have been requesting that sort of thing. I think it just goes to show that people are truly interested in their own evolution, which they understand is the evolution of humanity when we look at what we're doing ourselves. So, with that, we're going to say, have a good day, God bless, and we'll see you next Wednesday.